Hello everyone, my name is Anitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So this past weekend I participated in the Top Cut online GP event and I managed to take 5th place out of 206 players. So I think that's a personal accomplishment, and everyone is probably wondering what I played. I ended up taking Rookie Rush. So yes, boo! Rookie Rush, it's a good deck, it won! Yeah, that's basically the reason why I took it, was because I thought that I'd have a good shot at, winning and doing well, and, well, shocker, I did. So, without further ado, going over the deck profile. First up, starting with the Digitamas, I ran 4 copies of Upamon. So Upamon is just going to be acting as the primary draw engine for the deck, so that way when we're swinging with our cards, we're going to be drawing cards because we're going to be hard playing lots of our Digimon and not drawing as much as the normal deck, so we need alternate ways to draw cards, and Upamon is the best way we have at drawing cards. It's very easy for us to put ourselves to 3, whether our opponent does that for us, or we reduce our own security so that way we could trigger Upamon. It doesn't really matter, it's just here because it helps us draw cards, and that's what we're looking to gain for it. And then as far as the 5th Digitama, I'm going to be running 1 copy of Picmon. So there are instances where Picmon actually does matter, and Picmon's removal ability of when attacking, giving one of the opponent's Digimon minus 1000 DP actually does matter. My favorite play is to pair this up with a champion, so that way I could swing over the 6k blockers, so that way I could at least try to aggress more efficiently than before, and at worst I could kill off some of the opponent's weak rookies if they're just leaving them sitting on the field, and it could help make my numbers even smoother for even more removal potential. So the only condition for this card is just having bodies on board in order to make this ability live, and well, we're Rookie Rush, so that's not a very hard thing to do, and I do like running the 5th Digitama because there are games where I'm just going as wide as I possibly can, and I'm starting to run really low on Digitamas, so the fact that I have in last 5th Digitama helps me with my card draw. Next, on to the options, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Spiral Masquerade. So this is probably the best card in the entire deck. This is 100% a mandatory card because of how good this card is. So what this card does is it has a nice main ability where for each one of our Digimon on our field, we get to reduce one of the opponent's Digimon by 3000 DP. So with a very wide field, we could delete lots of potential targets, and we could delete more than 1 Digimon because of how this card is worded. So the fact that we use this card as a cheap, efficient, and very powerful removal card to delete lots of potential threats is what makes this card really, really good. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Blinding Ray. So Blinding Ray is just another absolutely insane mandatory card for the deck as of right now, just because Blinding Ray gaining us that 2 additional memory for trashing one of our own security is just that good. It makes lots of powerful plays possible, and it could even enhance and extend some of our plays, so that way we could put even more pressure onto the opponent very efficiently, and it's not like trashing our security is that bad, because we want to put ourselves within that 3 security threshold for Upamon to trigger. So it's not like in the early game it's that bad to use it, but in the late game this card also gets really insane, just because when we don't have any security, we could still use this card to gain 2 memory, and that's just what's making this card really, really good, is just it's allowing us to be as tempo efficient as possible. And then the last option of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Needle Spray. So Needle Spray is in here just because it's kind of a filler option. It doesn't really need to be in here, but it's still a pretty good card to run overall just because it has the nice main ability of suspending one of the opponent's Digimon. So we are going to be playing a couple of green Digimon, which I'll get into in just a moment. So it's not like this is going to be a dead card, and suspending one of the opponent's Digimon, obviously we're going to want to suspend the blocker, so that way we could swing in and aggress onto the opponent. And on top of that, it also has a nice security ability acting as some good threat in the security, where we get to activate its main to suspend one of the opponent's Digimon, and then this card goes into our hand, so that way we could reuse it again when we feel like we need to or we can. Next, on to the rookies. I'm going to be running 4 copies of Auroramon. So Auroramon is just a very powerful card just because we're not playing any green Digitamas, so we don't care about its evo cost at all, but the fact that its evo cost is the same as its play cost means that we just want to play this card, and just having a 2-drop 5k body is just that good, and on top of which it's a green Digimon to pair up so that way we could actually use our Needle Spray. And because we are running 4 copies of Auroramon, I'm also going to be running 4 copies of Lamon because it's basically the same exact card, just with a different name, and we really only care about the 2-drop 5k stat line because it's very obnoxious and very annoying for the opponent to try to deal with a 2-drop 5k because some of their removal might not even be good enough to get rid of it, or they have to try to come up with some alternate ways to get around and play around this card. And then as far as the yellow rookies of the deck go, I'm going to be running up 4 copies of Falcomon because Falcomon shares that same 2-drop 5k stat line, except this is in yellow, which is fitting on color with the deck, so it's just a good card to run because of that stat line. And the more 2-drops that we have that have very high level of DP is just really, really powerful because, again, they're just really hard for the opponent to deal with and very good and aggressive cards to be playing. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Pulsemon. I almost actually ran this deck without the Pulsemon, and I don't think the deck really needs the Pulsemon. Pulsemon's just a good card to have, and it's kind of like a no-brainer where it's just like it's doing everything that the deck wants to be doing. So it has this nice on-play ability where we get to either draw a card when we're at 3 or more security, or gain a memory when we're at 3 or less security, or if we're at exactly 3, we gain both abilities. So this just being a 2-drop rookie is already really good because we want to play as many 2-drop rookies as we can to try to choke and starve the opponent and make our math as equal as possible to try to put our opponent off of their game. And then being able to draw a card for just playing this card also just makes it another really good card to just try to keep our hand as healthy as possible because we want to try to gain as much value out of our cards as we possibly can because we're going to be hard playing our cards, trying to build as wide of a board as quickly as possible. So this card just helps with that. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Lamon. So Lamon is just another card in the deck to try to help us draw cards. That's really the only reason why we're playing this card. It has the nice on-play ability to look at the top card of our security, and then if we want, we could add that card from our security into our hand, and if we do, we get to draw 1 card. So this is actually essentially drawing us 2 cards and reducing our own security, which is pretty good because we also want to try to put ourselves within UPA threshold. So this is another card to act as a good card to help us do that while gaining us even more cards than something like Pulsemon. So for the time being, this is just a really good card at just trying to help us dig through our deck, draw some cards, and set up some of our other synergies. Next, I'm going to be playing 4 Starmons. So Starmons is another really powerful card to be running for the deck because, like Spiral Masquerade, this is one of the big ways we're going to be removing cards off of the field. So it has the nice on-play ability where for each Digimon we have in play, one of the opponent's Digimon gets minus 1000 DP per Digimon. So what this card basically means is the more Digimon we have in play, the stronger the removal ability becomes, and we're going to have a very wide board, again, very, very quickly. So this is going to be a really key and a crucial card to pick off a lot of potential Digimon. It could usually hit anywhere from low-level rookies to mid to high-level level 5s. I've rarely had enough Digimon where it's going to kill a Mega, but I have used it in combination with multiple Starmons to kill off a Mega, and I've used this in combination with Spiral Masquerade to kill off a high-level Digimon and multiple Digimon all at the same time. So Starmons is just another very good and powerful removal card for the deck, acting kind of like the control backbone to help us get to our ideal board state and put the opponent off of their game as best as we can. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Salamon. So Salamon is just acting as a solid recovery card for the deck. It's not really super crucial, but it is nice to have just because the recovery helps us stay in the game longer because we do have ways of dealing damage to ourselves. And if the opponent is trying to aggress onto us, then we could use Salamon to kind of help stave off some of that aggression. So that way we could come up with a counterplay to aggress into them and kind of damage race them. So this helps us win those types of damage race in that kind of game. gameplay. So it's a pretty decent card to be running, and I do think having some form of recovery is relatively important. It doesn't necessarily have to be Salamon. I just think Salamon's really good and really easy to play, especially in this meta because it also has a play cost of 4, so it does get around cards like Ultimate Flare for the time being, so it's just another very good rookie to be using. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Kudamon. So Kudamon, for the most part, is just another way that we're going to be drawing cards in the deck. So if we don't see any of our other draw cards, except for Kudamon, Kudamon is still really good because he's helping us draw cards. The condition on how we're going to be drawing is a little bit on the weaker side, and he does unfortunately have only 1000 DP, but that's okay considering how good this card can be, where his when attacking ability lets us draw a card as long as we have 4 or less cards in our hand, which again, if we're not seeing any of our other draw cards, then this card is just really good at ensuring that we're going to be getting a card draw, and to pair this up with Upamon, we could potentially draw 2 cards off of him, which is all we're looking to gain. We don't necessarily care about the 1000 DP, even though it is a little bit unfortunate. It's just the fact that we need him to try to have an alternate way of drawing cards. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Cutemon. So Cutemon is kind of hit and miss. It's more of a matchup dependent card, so this could really be anything you feel like you want it to be. I just feel like for what I saw, Cutemon was actually really, really good because I did end up going against 2 Imperial players and 1 green player. So this card was insanely good in those matchups because it prevents Imperial from digivolving for 3, and it prevents the opponent from using Digisorption and Hidden Potential Discover. So that did actually come up where it did put my opponent off of their game plan, slowing them down, and that slowdown did buy me some time to try to figure out ways to aggress into the opponent if I could. So I actually do really like Cutemon, and the fact that it does have 3000 DP versus 2000 DP makes it a little bit more favored in terms of swinging into the opponent's security and having a decent shot at living. But again, this is just more of a tech card, and it could really be anything you want it to be. And then as far as my level 4s go, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Cutemon. So Cutemon, we only really care about the fact that he evos for 1 and has 6000 DP. That's about it. We also care about the fact that he's a level 4, so if the opponent is trying to use Takumi to stop some of our aggression, then we could digivolve some of our rookies into Cutemons, so that way we could try to push and not lose memory that way. So I do like the fact that Cutemon is just the most efficient and the most powerful level 4 that we have to be playing with, and the 6000 DP actually does matter because the higher the DP, the more obnoxious it is for the opponent to deal with. So I do like the fact that we do have a very powerful card to be running, and for that reason alone is why I'm also going to be playing 4 copies of, I guess, my Spice card, which is going to be Digitama. So Digitama is basically doing almost the exact same thing as Cutemon. It's just hard plays for 1 less, and it evos for 1 more for having the same stats, but the stats and the level 4 is all we're trying to gain out of the card, just because we do want to have another evo option to go into. If we need to hard play him for 5, it's not as bad as hard playing Turui for 6, and the fact that he is just another 6000 beat stick is again the reason why I'm going to be running him. Again, a lot of people don't like running extra level 4s, but I feel like the extra level 4s that just help us draw cards because we do get that evolution bonus, and it helps against certain matchups like Hexablaumon, it helps against Nidhoggmon, it helps against some other cards like Takumi, so it's just not a bad card to be running in this style of meta based on everything that we've been seeing. So for the most part, that is just kind of the Rookie Rush deck. It's your very standard list with a couple of minor tech and spices based on what I was thinking the meta was going to be like, and it did end up taking me 5th place, so it did work relatively well. Now, the big thing that I noticed that I was doing was I was actually playing this deck wrong in the beginning. I would have just a couple of Digimon, and I would try to chip and swing and try to play as many Digimon as I possibly can, hoping that some of my Digimon live through the security checks, but I actually found that to be the wrong way to play the deck. The correct way to play the deck is basically build a very wide board, so that way you could actually utilize cards like Spiral Masquerade and Starmons to their utmost potential to deal with the opponent's threats, and then basically just have one big swing or push turn, so that way you could try to just aggress all at once and not worry about hitting anything dangerous in the security, because you'd have a wide enough field to deal with whatever their threats in the security could be. So I actually lost one of my games because I was aggressing as early as I possibly could, and that was just the completely wrong thing to do, because in their security was a memory fixing tamer, and that memory fixing tamer really does harm Rookie Rush, especially hitting it off of the security, so that way they spent basically 0 resources to now basically prevent themselves from being choked, versus them having to waste a turn to hard play the card because we're choking them so efficiently. So that is a huge difference on how we should be going about the deck, is we're not necessarily trying to just attack as quickly as we possibly can. We're systematically playing our Digimon to make our cards as efficient as possible and attacking when we feel safe or when we feel like we need to. So there was actually a play that I had to avoid where I knew the top card of the opponent's security was an Ultimate Flare, so I had to pop the Ultimate Flare as quickly as I possibly can and try to rebuild my board from that point forward, and I think I did actually win that match just because I was able to just build wide enough of a board and I already got the threat of the security gone because I knew what it was. So I only knew what it was because the opponents put it there off of an Izzy, so it was revealed to me, and I did have to make my plays around that, and I did try to play around a lot of other cards as best as I possibly could when I was attacking into the opponent's security, hoping that I wouldn't get wrecked by their security like a Stray Hammer Spark or any other options that could delete or deal with my board. I did end up attacking into the security, and there were a couple of options that did just harm me, so it wasn't like I wasn't prepared for it, but it did buy them an extra turn, but they weren't able to do anything with that turn because of how the deck is functioning and trying to starve them of their resources so that way they can't really play the game to the utmost potential. So I hope this information is really helpful, and I hope you enjoy this deck profile and try it out for yourself. And then I do have my gameplay video of Rookie Rush also from when I was playing, so you could refer to how I was playing Rookie Rush and see the development on how I was playing the deck, what I was doing, what situations I was coming across, and how I was reacting to them. So as far as my matchups go for the event, I ended up facing 1 Black Ragnar Lordmon or level 7 Turbo. I faced 2 Lord Knightmon, 2 Imperial Dramon, 1 Green Nidhogg, and 2 Security Control. So that was just the generalization of what I was playing against and my opponents. The security controls, both of them were kind of playing more of a Mega Zoo variant, so there weren't as many options in their security that were causing me to really be afraid after I realized what they were playing, but that was probably one of the harder matches. The Lord Knightmons were kind of not really free, but they were really easy and more easy than I expected after I learned how to play the deck relatively well really quickly after my one loss really early against one of the Imperial players. So it was actually the Imperial player that I faced first who ended up beating me 2-0 because I was just attacking into their security all willy-nilly, trying to damage race them because that's what I thought the matchup required, and it turns out I was wrong. It was better for me to just wait, build a wide board, because against the second Imperial player, I ended up holding back, being more reserved, and I was able to beat him relatively easily because he couldn't do a whole lot, and Cutemon actually did help in both of those matchups, and Cutemon also helped against Green, and Green did end up Nidhogging my board away and ended up taking him a game just because Nidhogg is that powerful, but I was able to come back and beat him when he didn't see his Nidhogg. So it was just a really good and fun event to be a part of, and I think that learning the deck while I was actually playing in the event was a huge eye-opener because I was playing the deck wrong for a while, and now that I learned really quickly on how I should be playing the deck, I feel very confident that this deck is a more skill-based deck than people give it credit for, just because there are a lot of things that you have to look out for. There's a lot of counterplay you have to think about, and there's a lot of tech that you could include in the deck to spice it up depending on what you think you would see. So I was lucky enough not to see any purple players, but I think if I was facing off against purple, I would be doing relatively well. Purple has a little bit of an easier time deleting some of our Digimon, so it would be a little bit harder to build as wide of a board as quickly as we possibly could, and I also didn't see any red players, so hardcore red players. Obviously the security control players were playing some red, but they weren't a dedicated red deck and no shout DXs to try to pick off my field, and I feel like the opponent's inability to just react to what I was doing was just allowing me to stick to my game plan, and as soon as I built that wide board, I was in a very dominating and commanding position of the game because I had all my cards cards working at max potential to remove and delete whatever I felt like I needed or come across, and build just that wide board to just swing all at once into the opponent's security, basically playing a numbers game. So their blockers didn't matter because I would have enough Digimon, or I would delete their blockers. Their megas didn't matter because they'd have to digivolve into the mega and then pass, getting almost no value off of their megas because I prevented them from playing their memory tamers. And even when they played their memory tamers, they had to pass the turn, and that extra turn gave me a lot more pressure to be able to put onto the opponent and respond to what the opponent was doing. So it is just a very powerful deck that does require a lot of insight and foresight on making sure that you can make your plays as powerfully and efficiently as you possibly can. I know that sounds really awkward, but it is a very systematic and mathematical deck on how it wants to operate, and it's not as brain dead as people think it is. And just as a quick reminder, I am going to be hosting a Win a Playmat event on October 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so feel free to hop into my Discord and register for the event through Limitless Games and play on my Discord channel. Links to those will be in the description below. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.